Good morning and welcome to this news event hosted by E2 and Clean Energy Trust. You'll be hearing from 4 speakers today, and then we'll open the floor for questions during the Q&A period. The Q&A period will be for reporters only, and if you wish to ask a question, please use the raise your hand function and your line will be unmuted when it is your turn to ask a question. For more information and to follow along with today's news event, you can visit the Clean Jobs Midwest website. That is cleanjobsmidwest.com. That's where you can find each of the state reports and news release for today. I'll also drop a direct link to that into the chat box here shortly. As I mentioned before, you'll be hearing from 4 speakers today. Our first speaker will be Ian Adams, who's the Managing Director at Clean Energy Trust. Our second speaker today will be Michaela Presco, who's the Midwest States Advocate at E2. Our third speaker today will be Russ Bates, founder of NextGen Clean Energy Solutions in Independence, Ohio. And our fourth speaker today will be Maria Ernesto Moran, President of Green Home Experts in Lyons, Illinois. And we'll also be joined today a little later on by Phil Jordan. He's the Vice President and Principal Researcher at BW Research. Phil is here to answer your questions in the Q&A period, as I said a little later. But let's begin with our first speaker today. That is Ian Adams, Managing Director at Clean Energy Trust. Ian, take it away.
Good morning. Happy to be here with you today, and thank you for joining us. So Clean Energy Trust is a nonprofit that provides catalytic capital and support to early stage startups in the greater Midwest, working on solutions for clean energy, decarbonization, and environmental sustainability. We believe in the power of innovation to create good paying jobs in the region, and we know that small businesses really drive the growth of the clean energy sector and of the overall economy. We're a supporter of the clean energy ecosystem in the Midwest, and so are happy to collaborate with our partner E2 to develop and release today's Clean Jobs Midwest report. So we're excited to announce the results today. This is our 6th edition of the report, our 6th annual edition. It's the most comprehensive count of the Midwest's clean energy jobs. And this covers jobs across energy efficiency, renewable energy generation, advanced transportation, clean fuels, and grid and storage technologies in 12 states in the Midwest. So I'd like to share a few top lines from the report with you. More than 677,000 people work in the clean energy industry in the region. Now, like most of the economy, the clean energy industry was really hit hard by the pandemic-induced recession. In 2020, it was the first time we saw a decline in clean energy jobs since we began tracking these jobs through this report in 2016. And at the end of last year, there were 66,000 fewer jobs than there had been at the start. Energy efficiency is the largest sector in the clean energy industry, with about 470,000 total jobs, but it also saw the largest decline in jobs due to the pandemic. But there is some good news too. The industry is rebounding and grew faster than the overall economy in the second half of the year. A few other bright spots, wind energy, those jobs grew by more than 4% last year, despite the downturn, and now employ almost 40,000 people in the Midwest. And advanced transportation jobs grew in every state in the region, driven by the growth of hybrids and electric vehicles. Electric vehicles jobs actually grew about 8.5% across the region. And we think that's an area that's poised for further growth in the years to come. It feels like almost every day we're hearing about new industry developments from traditional automakers and some new entrants. All this information and more is located on an interactive website at cleanjobsmidwest.com. And there you can see more data, you can learn more about the people that work in the clean energy industry. And a couple of those folks are actually on the call today and will be sharing their perspective in a little bit. So in closing, we're really excited to share this report with you. We think it's very timely, and we're excited about the potential of the clean energy industry going forward and the potential for innovative clean energy businesses to really help grow this sector and be an engine of economic opportunity in the region. So I look forward to your questions today.
Again, that was Ian Adams, Managing Director at Clean Energy Trust. And that takes us to our second speaker today, which is Michaela Preskill, Midwest States Advocate at E2. Michaela, take it away.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela Preskill, and I'm E2's Midwest Advocate. E2 is a national nonpartisan group of business leaders from every sector of the economy who advocate for policies that are good for the environment and good for the economy. So we've just heard from Ian about the data we're releasing today, and I'm here to talk about the role that policy can play in creating more clean energy jobs throughout the region. So while the industry took a hit along with the rest of the economy, the good news is that this industry is poised for growth like we've never seen before. The economics are in our favor. Clean energy is now the cheapest energy available in most parts of the world, and we're seeing record investments in clean energy companies. But for this industry to reach its full potential and for us to do something about climate change and the economic costs that come with it, we need lawmakers to do the right thing and pass the right policies. So here are 3 ways we can grow clean energy jobs in the Midwest. First, Congress needs to pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill and a reconciliation package that will lead to major investment in clean energy and electric vehicles in the Midwest and beyond. We have a blueprint in the Biden administration's Build Back Better plan and a step in the right direction with the Senate's passing of an infrastructure bill yesterday. Creating jobs and helping our economy and our environment shouldn't be a partisan issue, and Midwest members of Congress from both sides of the aisle will be key to implementing the Build Back Better plan. Second, we need state lawmakers to stop putting up roadblocks to a cleaner economy and the jobs that come with it. Illinois legislative leaders have not yet come to an agreement on a comprehensive clean energy package. And as a result, we're losing jobs to other states. Some of E2's members in the solar industry tell me layoffs are happening as we speak. Springfield can make that stop by passing comprehensive clean energy legislation right away. Another example, last year in Ohio, HB 6 started taking effect, which has been called the worst energy bill in history. Ohio lawmakers rolled back energy efficiency programs and essentially sidelined the state during the biggest boom in clean energy this country has ever seen. A bill passed earlier this year puts up additional roadblocks to siting renewable energy projects in the state. And now, third, we need to enact programs to ensure Midwesterners from every walk of life have access to jobs and investment in clean energy. So working with unions, we need to support and expand bona fide apprenticeship programs and other training opportunities for clean energy occupations. That's the first step to good paying jobs in this sector. We also need to make sure the advantages of cheaper, cleaner energies and the jobs that come with it are reaching our communities of color and under-resourced communities. And we can do that by creating and supporting local training programs, green banks, and other investment opportunities directed at under-resourced communities. And we need lawmakers to remember equity in every policy that they consider involving clean energy. So as today's report shows, these are jobs that can be available to everyone. Clean energy jobs cover such a wide swath of our economy, from construction, manufacturing, innovation, investment, efficiency, electricity, automobiles. They also cover every corner of our 12-state region. So by investing in clean energy, we know that we can create thousands of jobs across many occupations in every state in the coming years. But here's what I want you to take away from my comments today. To grow clean energy jobs, our lawmakers in Washington and in state capitals must take bold action to support and invest in energy efficiency, clean energy, and clean vehicles. Doing so will create jobs and new opportunities for people throughout the Midwest.
Again, that was Michaela Preskill, Midwest States Advocate at E2. That takes us to our third speaker today. That is Russ Vates, founder of Next Gen Clean Energy Solutions based in Independence, Ohio. Russ, take it away.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you. Russ Bates, founder of NextGen Clean Energy Solutions. We're based in Ohio, but I'm actually from Southern Indiana. And if you're familiar with that region in the Midwest, you know there's a lot of coal mines. There's also a lot of coal-fired power plants. And that's where I actually began my career and spent much of my career was working in these fossil fuel power gen facilities as an IBEW electrician. I made a great living there, worked with some really amazing people, and feel very fortunate that I had that experience in that fossil fuel industry. But as my career progressed, I really decided I wanted to transition into the clean energy sector. I was always intrigued by the potential of renewables, and we're really seeing that potential being realized today as these technologies are much more efficient and the cost is incredibly reduced over the past decade. And so I did make that transition. And in that time that I've been working in the clean energy sector, I did realize a bit of a gap, if you will, between larger, say, utility solar projects and smaller projects, say a residential project. And unfortunately, what I found is really troubling, noticing that small businesses fall into that gap. And with small businesses being the lifeblood of our economy, I wanted to do something and not let them fall behind and not be able to take advantage of these clean energy technologies. And so I decided to become a small business owner myself and founded NextGen Clean Energy Solutions. So what NextGen does is we work with small businesses, we work with small municipalities, work really with anyone who's interested in clean energy and the incredible benefits that we can get from these renewable technologies. So we work with our clients to help them save money, to help them generate additional revenue through electric vehicle charging stations, for instance. Of course, we're helping the economy with the job creation for these projects. And last but certainly not least, reducing that carbon footprint and helping the environment, which is so incredibly important. So with whether we talk with the public sector, private sector, people on the street, anybody that we really speak with, they're overwhelmingly in support of clean energy and these technologies and feel it's very important. We're very passionate about it and feel privileged to be a part of this industry. Look forward to your questions.
Thanks. Again, that was Russ Bates, founder of NextGen Clean Energy Solutions based in Independence, Ohio. And that takes us to our fourth and final speaker today. That is Maria Ernesto Moran, president of Green Home Experts based in Lyons, Illinois. Maria, take it away.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Green Home Experts is a company that I started in 2007 in Illinois. We are an energy efficiency service provider, which means that we help gas and electric utilities implement their energy efficiency programs. We're also a lighting distributor selling energy efficient lighting to commercial customers throughout the region. I currently have about 38 employees, and we offer services that include direct installation, program outreach, program administration, and field data collection. My favorite program that we provide is installing energy efficient products to income eligible senior citizens in our community. But the service that we're most known for is fulfilling and shipping energy efficiency kits to residential and commercial customers. These kits provide about 70,000 customers a year with easy to install products that help them save money for years to come. I entered the clean energy industry 14 years ago because I believe in the possibilities of a green and clean economy. Green Home Experts is a company that benefits the economy, job market, and the environment, making the ideals and goals of clean energy a reality. I believe that with better job training, innovation, and finance, a clean energy economy is in our near future. Thank you.
Again, that was Maria Ernesto Moran, who is the president of Green Home Experts based in Lyons, Illinois. That takes us to the Q&A portion of today's call. If you wish to ask a question, use the raise your hand function and your line will be unmuted when it is your turn to ask a question. And as a reminder, the Q&A period is for reporters only. If you are having issues with your own audio or the raise your hand function, you may also use the text-based Q&A box, and we'll do our best to get to all of the questions. But before we begin, I want to mention that a video recording of the news event will be made available online later today at the Clean Jobs Midwest website. I dropped that in the box a little bit earlier, but that website again is cleanjobsmidwest.com. And as I mentioned a little earlier, we are joined by Phil Jordan, Vice President and Principal Researcher at BW Research. Phil is here to answer questions on the jobs data. All right, why don't we take our first question? Our first question is from Dana Cronin at Illinois Public Media. Question is, how has use of biofuels, specifically ethanol, changed during the pandemic?
This is Ian. In terms of the usage, this survey doesn't cover like energy use specific usage trends. It's specifically a look at the clean energy jobs, and so covers the jobs that are being created or lost in the region. But I don't believe we have good data for you on the actual utilization of those biofuels.
Yeah, this is Phil. That's right. I mean, generally speaking, right, reductions in travel from the pandemic reduced fuel overall. So the fuel sector saw some pretty significant declines through the pandemic, and from an employment perspective. So sort of safe to draw the conclusion that there was a decline there in the use of ethanol because of the overall reduced production and consumption of fuels for transportation.
Why don't we take our next question? Our next question comes from Midwest Energy News. The question is, was it surprising that clean energy job growth picked up so relatively strongly in the second half of 2020? What do you attribute that to, given the pandemic was still going on?
So this is Phil Jordan from BW Research. I would just sort of note that it's all relative, right? So I think a significant rebound is from a pretty steep decline, and so when we look at the growth, the monthly growth or rebound comparatively, it's I wouldn't call it spectacular growth. We're still behind pre-pandemic levels. With the growth rates and the overall employment. Part of what led to the rebound was that when the pandemic first started, there was sort of a much stronger sort of shutdown, really, right? Like people were sheltering in place. And at least for the first few weeks of those sort of mandates or recommendations, there was a lot of confusion about who could do what and who's an essential worker. It became much less likely that people would want, contractors in their homes, as an example. But then as we sort of navigated that over time, we saw that particularly things like utility scale installations could continue and be done safely at distance with PPE and outdoors, which we came to learn was really, really valuable. So I think what we saw was sort of a temporary furlough for a period of time. We'll note some research that we've conducted that things like the payroll protection program was really important to businesses. E2 did some work on that at a national level, that those types of initiatives are really important. I do think that what we found in that work is that some of the continuing concern about Delta variant and potential for sort of additional waves, where we saw the impacts of those most dramatically were in residential markets, because of that sort of concern about having someone in your home, much less on the utility scale or outdoor or vacant building type activities.
Thanks, Phil. Just want to make sure that reporters on the line have a chance to pose their questions. And remind you once again how you may ask a question. If you wish to ask a question, use the raise your hand function and your line will be unmuted when it is your turn to ask a question. As I said before, the Q&A period is for reporters only. And if you're having issues with your audio or the raise your hand function, you may also use the text-based Q&A box, and we will do our best to get to all the questions. All right, we will take our next question now. Next question is from Sarah Spicer at the Wichita Eagle. Sarah, your line is now unmuted.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this today. I'm, like the moderator said, I'm Sarah Spicer. I'm from the Wichita Eagle here in Kansas. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about legislation and specifically the most recent legislation with the infrastructure bill and also state legislation that we should be looking forward or supporting.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'll start. The Senate's passage of the infrastructure bill yesterday is a first step. We're really looking ahead to the reconciliation process. And I think on Monday, the IPCC report highlighted that there's no time to waste by going small on climate. And so we have a huge opportunity now to not only avoid the worst economic and social impacts of climate change, but as this report highlights, to make sure that U.S. workers thrive, U.S. consumers save, and that we can compete at the national level and grow jobs. So we'll be looking ahead to reconciliation, and we'll be advocating for policies like a national clean energy standard, enhancement of clean energy tax incentives, creating a clean energy accelerator to spur private clean energy investments, and provide the financing needed to support entrepreneurship, especially in under-resourced communities. We'll be advocating to fund workforce training programs that open opportunities in clean energy to more Americans, and of course, supporting investments in the advanced transportation industry to create jobs and make sure that our country can compete abroad. So I think there's a huge opportunity, and we will be advocating for the policies I've just said and making sure that the Midwest members of Congress are taking bold action to really rise up to the moment. On the state front, I think, states should see this opportunity to leverage federal action to go even further and get more accomplished. Strong state policy now combined with federal support is a combination that will really catalyze further growth. And I think we'll be, looking to Midwest states to really lead the way.
All right, why don't we take our next question? Our next question comes from Alex Moe at Wisconsin Politics. Alex, your line is now unmuted.
Hi there, thank you. Yes, as you said, I'm Alex Moe from wispolitics.com. I just had a question about some of the numbers here in the report. Looking at the Wisconsin fact sheet, excuse me, some of the numbers showing growth in the specific sectors in clean energy jobs, such as hybrid vehicles growing by 7.2% to 2,281 workers. Are those numbers showing the increase over the year last year, those 2020 increases? Yeah, any clarity you can provide on that would be great. Thank you.
Hi, this is Phil. Yes, so those are increases. Those are annual increases. So it's an annual survey that E2 and Clean Energy Trust have been working on together for a number of years. And so the data are collected in the fourth quarter of each year. So it's a year over year growth number.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Why don't we take our next question now? Our next question offline from Midwest Energy News. What do you think this year will look like given the growing surge in COVID cases and any other factors?
Anybody else have a crystal ball here? I think it's really challenging. I mean, we have seen that the economy and the pandemic sort of waves have been very highly linked in terms of general economic growth, and the same has been true to some extent for clean energy, as I mentioned, with the residential markets. It's a big question mark, I think, in everyone's mind about what the year will look like. I do think that we have more certainty and clarity now about sort of transmission and safe protocols. So again, this is forecasting in an area where we don't have a lot of certainty, but I would think that that particularly on the renewables front, we should continue to see a rebound apace. I don't want to say regardless of what happens, because things get really, really bad with the pandemic. But if we start seeing some waves like what we saw in the second half of 2020, I think that enough of the sort of challenges have been worked out and the safety protocols have been worked out that, particularly on the renewables front, I think we'll be able to continue to manage that. I am, again, a little bit more concerned about efficiency, particularly on the residential side, just because of the concerns of individuals and people in homes. But I think we've learned a lot about the protections, and I think that will go a long way.
Just want to give one last opportunity for reporters on the line to ask a question, especially while we have all of our speakers here in one place today. And as a reminder, if you wish to ask a question, use the raise your hand function and your line will be unmuted when it is your turn to ask the question. We're also taking follow-up questions if you have them. And as I mentioned before, the Q&A period is for reporters only. If you are having issues with your audio, the raise your hand function, you may submit a text-based question in the Q&A box, and we will do our best to get to those as well. It does not look like we have additional questions at this time, so I want to turn it. Oh, maybe we do have an additional question here. Yeah, we do have additional questions here in the Q&A box. My mistake. All right. Question from Kevin Bessler at Center Square in Illinois. How do you build a strong clean energy economy?
Well, I can start, and I'm sure others can chime in. The good news is that the economics are in our favor. Clean energy is cheaper than it's ever been before. We're seeing record investment. But what's really going to make or break this industry is whether or not policymakers can step up in the coming weeks, months, year. The industry still needs a shot in the arm. As Phil mentioned earlier, we're still at jobs lost. And not to mention, this investing in the clean energy economy is more urgent than it's ever been before because of the threat of climate change. So we have the tools at our fingertips to address climate change, build jobs, build opportunities and bring benefits to every corner of the state. But we need policymakers to step up. We need policymakers to step up at the federal level through bold action in the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation process. And we need state lawmakers to go beyond getting rid of barriers, but to actually invest in the future that we need for our climate and for our economy. I'm sure others on the line have more to say.
I'll go next just by saying what I think strong can also mean, because I think Michaela is absolutely correct with the policy framework, the strong policies and the investments that are needed to push forward the clean energy economy. The other things I think make it stronger is when you have a focus on domestic supply chains, so that we're really thinking about strengthening manufacturing and services and having those products manufactured here in the US and within the individual states in the region. Also, of course, focusing on equity and ensuring that the jobs are accessible to people in communities that have not always been engaged in the traditional energy sector or the clean energy sector to date. And then also ensuring the workplace standards and wages that you hear, the administration and many states talk about, which, many places could mean, unionization, could mean other sorts of things, but to really ensure good wages and good worker protections would be other ways to think about sort of building that strong clean energy economy.
Thanks, Phil and Michaela. Let's take our next question from Kelsey Paulus at WKSU NPR in Ohio. She asks, are there any other factors aside from the pandemic that have/are affecting clean energy in Ohio?
Yeah, I can take that one. Certainly the pandemic affected it, but even more so than that, I think it's policies, as Michaela mentioned. I think it's a little bit of education whenever the general public learns about specifics of clean energy and what it can do and how it can save money. And of course, the environmental impact that the positive impact it makes, that's a big part too. So one of the biggest things I do see is the permitting process and making that much more simple. I'm not saying you don't have to have a permitting process. You have to have due diligence. But wow, there's a lot of roadblocks, it feels, that are being put up. I'd mention Senate Bill 52 in Ohio, for example, that was recently passed and just throws in another barrier for getting these projects ready. So a job that you can get your engineering, procure your materials and modules, inverters, all that, and then actually do the construction. That should be the hard part, but it's not. It's the permitting, which is the very difficult part of these projects. So a job we could start, literally within 2 or 3 months takes 6 months, takes 12 months, takes 2 years in some cases and longer. And sometimes they're not even permitted. So I think that process really needs to be simplified. That would certainly help in Ohio and I would say across the Midwest.
Thank you, Russ. We will take a follow-up question now from Dana Cronin at Illinois Public Media. Dana asks, are the panelists hopeful that all clean energy jobs lost during the pandemic can be recouped? And if so, when?
I can start with this one, Dana. In Illinois, we have a lot of the same challenges that other states are seeing across the U.S. with having a hard time filling our job openings, getting people back to work. We hope that that becomes less of a challenge this fall. But yes, this is an opportunity for Illinois and the Midwest and the entire nation to hopefully, as we recover from COVID, build back better, right? And so my hope is that we're able to take advantage of this opportunity from an economical and legislative perspective to fix a little bit of what was broken and what was missing in our economy, and to help all of us rebound from the pandemic with clean energy jobs. When, again, like Phil said, does anybody have a crystal ball? COVID certainly is casting its ugly shadow over all of the decisions that we make, as humans and as business owners. But certainly my hope and what we're aiming for is that the recovery from COVID includes clean energy jobs.
Yeah, I can go next, and I would absolutely agree with Maria. We see a lot of projects that people want to move on. And when will that happen? Again, that kind of goes back to what I was mentioning about the permitting process and being able to really start these jobs. But yeah, I'm very optimistic. I really have a sense, especially in Ohio, which hasn't been known as a clean energy state. I really get the sense that people are starting to jump on board. The folks we talk to are very, very interested in clean energy and being able to utilize that. So a lot of those misconceptions have gone away that, solar, for instance, won't work in the Cleveland area as an example. Well, it will, and that's what we're proving. So I'm very optimistic about it again. I think as we move forward, of course, we do need help. I can't stress that enough. Michaela has hammered that point that we do need a lot of policy adjustments, I think, to make this work. But, again, we're running out of time. Reports that are coming out tell us that. So, overall, I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, I would further, I think Russ and Maria hit the nail on the head there. I'm optimistic as well. And, Clean Energy Trust really works with the innovation ecosystem with startups and early stage companies. And one thing that we see is that there's an incredible amount of energy that's coming in, human energy coming into the space where, Michaela talked about the IPCC report. Climate change is very salient to folks. Obviously, we need to get the policies right. We need to get the regulation right. But it's an area that really affects folks. And I think to some extent, maybe generational as well. And so one thing that we see are people that have been very successful in other spaces. They worked in tech. They developed an app for a running app or what have you, refocusing themselves and transitioning sectors. Sometimes that's within energy, but we're also seeing a lot of really talented people coming into the clean energy space because they know this is a huge wealth creation opportunity, and it's one of the most important things, for the planet. And so it's a really exciting time to be in the clean energy space because there's a lot of folks that are realizing that they, have a limited amount of time on Earth and they want to do something that really matters. And they've said, being in the clean energy industry, that's something that really matters. And so it's exciting to see that influx of talent.
Thank you, Ian, Russ, and Maria. Well, it looks like we don't have any additional questions at this time, so I want to turn it over to Michaela Preskill for some closing thoughts. Michaela?
Thanks, Alex. Well, to recap, more than 677,000 clean energy jobs are in the Midwest. And this is an industry that can be poised for growth like we've never seen before. To grow these jobs, we need our lawmakers to take bold action to support and invest in clean energy, energy efficiency, and clean vehicles. And doing so will create jobs and bring new opportunities to people throughout the Midwest. The time to act is now.
Thank you, Michaela. And just want to make sure you know where to get more information following today's news conference. To connect with any of the speakers that you've heard from today or to get more information, you can contact Alex Frank, that's myself, at 703-276-3264 or afrank@hastingsgroup.com. A recording of this news event will be made available later today online at the Clean Jobs Midwest website. That is cleanjobsmidwest.com. It's also present on your screen now. I just want to thank all of our panelists today, and as well as our participants for joining us, letting you know that today's news event was hosted by both E2 and Clean Energy Trust. But that concludes